less stress, more time, more money. Welcome to the Cash Flow Contractor. Interview.
Well, welcome to the Cash Flow Contractor. Martin, it's good to be back with you.
You too, Khalil.
Okay. Well, we've got special guest Reid Schindler here. Reid, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We are in a mutual group of COE, Council of Entrepreneurs up in the city with Brian Clifton. Probably need to bring Brian on at some point.
Oklahoma City.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So that's how I got to meet Reid. You spoke last month just about your business, and I said, man, we have to talk, bring you on the podcast. So I really appreciate you joining us.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah, so let's get a little bit of your background. So you're a pool builder here in Oklahoma. But yeah, tell us where you're from and how you got started.
Absolutely. So I was born in Liberal, Kansas. Family was in the kind of the oil industry, so we moved to Pampa, Texas. Grew up mostly there, and then on to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So when I moved into a new district there in high school, I needed another elective, and they put me into kind of an architecture program.
Oh, yeah?
So really it all started there. So I got put in a drafting program, and it just happened by chance, I guess, that this teacher who kind of taught drafting had averaged 2 to 4 engineers and architects graduating college a year, and he was there for 20 years.
Wow.
So it was a program that it was the top ranked in the state. So he was literally sending guys out of high school that were like way beyond their years in college out of drafting programs. So
that's awesome.
By the time I graduated high school, I had already drawn full house plans, electrical plans, all sorts of things like that with AutoCAD, hand drawing, renderings, everything. So
that's awesome.
We always had a speaker come to see us once a month. And one month, a landscape architect came, presented us, showed us all these cool swimming pools he had done with water slides and, double level pools. And being, 16, we were all just kind of blown away by that people were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars back then on their backyard. And at the end of it, he said, and by the way, I need an intern. And, I think around 20 people interviewed for the single internship. And to his credit, he was forward thinking. He saw in the newspaper that our drafting program had won another state championship. Like, yes, they have state championships for drafting. Awesome. But it was a cool program, I promise. The athletes were in it. So, anyways, he read in the newspaper, and at that time, the pool industry had just released some 3D software, and he didn't even know how to turn on a computer. Yeah. So his thought was, well, I can probably pay some high schooler that knows their way around computers and AutoCAD, $6-7 an hour, and they can figure it out, and then I don't even have to worry about it.
Right.
So anyways, long story short, I ended up getting an internship under this landscape architect. So that was my last job interview I've ever had.
Wow.
When I was 16. So through high school, I'd work 2 hours before school, I would go in, and then I'd work 2 hours after school doing 3D renderings.
Getting a high school, I coach high school soccer. Getting a high school kid to get up 2 hours before school is a really big deal. So you had to be pretty motivated.
It honestly beat working 4 hours after school.
So you didn't have any time after that.
Correct. And the other thing, I was on a golf team, so every day we're playing golf, which you get out for the end of the day, but still to play 9 holes and stuff, I wasn't getting finished till 5:30. So then by the time I put in 2 hours more at the office,
homework is out the window.
I did. I don't think I ever did homework until college. So I was one of the guys that it all came somewhat easy to me. So it was, I would usually have it done before I left school that day. So, but anyway, so I kind of lucked into that position doing pools, and it's just a real niche industry. So I'm 33 years old now, but I've been in the industry for 17 years. So I've been in the industry
crazy.
Longer than I haven't. Haven't been in the industry.
That's so wild.
Yeah. So then after doing that for 2 years, I knew that I either wanted to be in architecture, engineering, or something in the design field.
Sure.
So when I kind of looked at colleges, I looked at ones that were all strong in those fields, and it just so happened that Oklahoma State had just a really good engineering program, really good architecture program, really good landscape architecture program.
Yeah.
So that was...
How can we get OSU's sports to live up to the architecture and engineering programs?
Improve the field. They have AstroTurf up there, don't they?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, are we going to talk as a whole athletic program, or are we talking about one specific sport?
I mean, we'll give you wrestling every once in a while.
Okay.
And
I'm fairly certain the OU basketball team is 0 for 2 in the last 2 weeks against
we
us,
are.
but
We are.
there we go.
It's true.
All joking aside, but yeah, so I ended up at Oklahoma State. I really hadn't visited a lot, but I just fell in love with the area. It was a small town. Again, just awesome with design fields. And I actually started out with mechanical engineering.
Oh, okay.
And I lasted probably 2 months before most people like quit the major because they're not cut out for it. And I quit it because I was like, I'm not an engineer. Like, that's not the way my mind thinks. Because
Right.
in my opinion, they're always trying to like tell you how things should work. And I'm trying to tell you how I should like come up with something that might not work, but let's try to figure it out. You
Left,
know?
right,
It's
left
outside of the
brain,
box,
right brain.
inside.
Yeah.
Outside the box, inside of the box kind of deal.
Gotcha.
So switched over to landscape architecture and stayed there, for the 5-year program. That's what I have my degree in. But during that time, that internship I had gotten, the landscape architect from Denton, he moved to another company in Southlake, Texas, called Claffey Pools, and he told their owner, he's like, hey, I've got this college kid that, he already knows everything. He's got this skill set. Would you guys be interested in hiring him for the summers? And so basically, again, I didn't interview anything. They offered me a job, an internship, so I worked every summer. They'd give me some work during the school year, but doing CAD plans. But what was interesting about that is they were pretty intent, I think, at the very start of like making it more than just an internship. And I think that's where some people can kind of mess up with it, is they see internship as labor versus like, hey, we're going to we may hire this guy, so we need to like treat it as such. Like it's a long-term interview.
Yeah, long-term investment too.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Like
so
you put a lot of training into interns, and sometimes it can be draining to, you feel like, man, I can be doing X, Y, Z instead of doing this, but it can turn out really good. I mean, Ethan's sitting over here. He interned for us. Now he's full-time.
Yeah, we used to call him the intern. What do we call him now? I guess Ethan.
Yeah, Ethan the employee. I don't know.
I mean, the way I see it with pay structure, you're better off having 4 interns fail out and 1 out of every 4 or 5 work out versus hiring a full-time person. They work for you for 6 months before firing them.
Exactly.
So, anyways, test driving cars kind of things. We can go on a whole podcast just on interns, and we can get into it further. But so I went to work for Claffey Pools, so I just honestly
where is
lucked
Claffey Pools
into
again?
Southlake, Texas.
Southlake, Texas. Okay.
Yeah, so it's near the DFW airport.
Okay.
Really, really great area. They've been a top 5, top 10 pool builder in the whole United States for 30 years.
Wow.
And this year I think they were number 2 or 3.
Gotcha.
In number of pools put in?
No, in like
quality.
their quality,
Design.
total dollars done. Like there's
Somebody
a whole
measures
formula.
that? Yeah, there's a formula.
Exactly.
What
Pool
kind
and
of-
Spa News
Because
releases it. Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into this a little bit more later on, but give us kind of an idea of like where they there's different types of pool builders, right? Because you can get the above ground pool guy and you can get like they're doing stadium or big Olympic centers and stuff like that. So
You mentioned the inflatable pool guy.
I didn't talk about the inflatable pool guys. That's me. That's my kind of pool I can build, right?
Yeah, well, that's about the only one you can get done quickly. So, so there's really kind of 3 different types of pools that you see recognized in the industry, which is a concrete pool, a fiberglass pool, and then a vinyl liner pool.
Okay.
For the most part, they're all going to kind of fall into those categories, and some of those are above ground, some are underground.
Sure.
But the ones that I have always been a part of have been concrete pools.
Concrete.
Yeah.
And that's what the company that you worked for in Southlake also did.
Correct. Yeah. So
Okay.
and again, So Golke Pools was the pool company I worked for in high school. And again, they're a top, 25 company too. So again, I somewhat lucked out that I just had these really good jobs and really good owners and just these established companies that
Texas is a good place to grow up for that kind of stuff,
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was for pools and stuff. It's just a booming time. We saw a little downturn, but for basically the whole time I've been around, it's been a pretty positive,
awesome,
slide. So.
Yeah. So you were working for them in college and then after college too?
Yeah. So I worked for them in college basically every summer. Knew that's what I was going to do. My professors kind of weird about it because they're
academic more so.
Yeah, and like
They're talking about it, you're actually doing it.
Yeah, and they're not bragging. They're really excited about our classmates that are getting jobs in Florida and California, and they're going to these large firms. And I'm sitting here like, yeah, but my offer letter is way higher than all of theirs. Like, what are we?
Yeah,
I'm not
comparing here.
Yeah, exactly. So the pool industry is kind of like the black sheep of like the design world, I think. But it's ironic because anytime we get landscape architects' plans for pools, they're usually very basic. So it's almost like you need both a pool builder, designer, and a landscape architect involved.
Gotcha.
So kind of staying in your own lane. But I'll say this: landscape architects are getting better about designing water features, pools, and things, and pool builders are getting better about landscape
Gotcha.
and yeah, I mean more like overall site design and stuff like that. So it's I think they're acknowledging each other, which is a good thing.
Yeah. So you're working there after college. You get the offer and you decide to move down to Southlake.
Yes. So we moved down there right after college, go to work full time, and that's where I went straight into sales. So for basically 9 years, I guess it was, I was in sales and design.
Okay, so you would actually go and you were a very well-educated salesperson.
Yeah.
Very well experienced.
So after my first summer of doing drawings, again, I think that was the cool thing is the company really saw like, okay, like this isn't, he's not going to be a draftsman. Right. Like he's going to be like, a salesperson. He's going to be represent our company. Right. And so they started putting me the next summer. I worked there 4 summers, and every summer was completely different.
Cool.
So it was, one time for the whole summer, I'm shadowing one of the owners, and I'm just basically her personal assistant. Another time, I'm shadowing one of the landscape architects there. Sometimes I'm doing drawings, So they put me in a lot of different roles, and it was great because by the time I went full time, like, there was zero training necessary. I had seen the good and the bad, and I kind of already had my own like plan.
Yeah.
So which was good because in pool sales at least, I don't know if every company is the same way, but it's commission only. So there's no paycheck guaranteed. There's nothing. You are a flat out commission salesperson.
Wake up every morning without a job.
Yeah, that's what kill something. Which is funny now that I own my own business. A lot of people are like, man, are you worried about money and stuff? I'm like, I don't know.
I've been doing this forever.
Yeah, I basically own my own company because if you're commission only, anyways, there's some funny stuff I had to take. I think my wife's access to our bank account lasted 3 weeks into our marriage because man, you talk about someone that can't understand the concept of 1 month having money and the next month having no money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
a lot of people don't.
Yeah, it is a tough life, but it really does prepare you for owning a business, honestly, because you know how to budget, what your projected incomes are, what not to spend even if you have, and so it's not a bad strategy to get into that, which is funny because now that I own my own business, the first time I've ever had a salary. Yeah. So first time I've ever had a paycheck that I know what it is.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, I think it's also a good thing, you get to learn all the budgeting and things like that, but you also have the skill to go and get some jobs because that's one of the biggest things to start in the business. You have to have the work. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that was the good thing. Could I have done pools not having a college degree? Absolutely. Yeah. But when I went to college, I got very involved in a fraternity. I got very involved, in our major, we're presenting to panels of professionals all the time. So every other week we have to present work. And what it really did was like give me the confidence of like jumping up in front of someone and not being scared to propose stuff that may, others might be
You
worried
do
about.
what a lot of design schools, did they intentionally tear down your first effort and criticize it and throw it on the floor and
It wasn't.
spit on the ground and say, do it again?
It wasn't ever bad, honestly. But I could tell, and to their credit, the people that they knew couldn't take it, they would work around it. But the people they knew, like, this person could go some places, then yeah, they would get really tough with them. But they would, it was constructive. But they would. But by the end of it, by our 5th year, all of us, I could jump up with a project I never even designed, and I could tell you about an hour of it. Like, I could present a project I've never even seen for an hour and give you all the reasons why, and they, just BS your way through.
Because you know so much.
Yeah, or just because you have the confidence of,
sure.
And how many people could say, hey, you don't know the topic, go give an hour speech, and then they give it to you. But that's the truth. By the time once you get that confidence of speaking in front of panels and stuff, it's better, obviously, if you're educated and you know all the stuff. But I think there's just a line there. You either have it or you don't, and that's part of what they were doing, and in doing that, which it was great. And it really, from a sales perspective, there's some of the best designers in the world that you never have heard of, just because they don't have the confidence,
so true, or
the ability to get up and even show off their stuff. Now, social media, I think, has almost helped that, because you can sit in a closet and design,
post something,
killer stuff, post it, and that's your voice.
Exactly.
But as far as selling, that's tough, and that's the way you make money, in my opinion, as a designer. Very few people, if you don't have that sales instinct, it doesn't matter how good you are, your designs just kind of sit.
Yeah, so true.
But yeah.
So you worked for this company. Remind me the name again. Sorry.
Claffy Pools.
Yes. So you worked there for 8 years.
8 years. Yeah, 8 years. Is what
nice. And so, what was the progression like? Did you just stay as a salesperson? Did you become a sales manager? What was that like?
Yeah. So the progression, I started out on basic stuff. For the most part, and I started off on just basically taking leads that the company had, and then I would say after about 3 years, I started getting 25% referrals, which I think referrals are just that's the key to making money.
Yeah,
because I was making good money out of college, but until I started having I got to the point where 5 years, I knew 5 pools a year was going to come in and be a referral, and they were 100% no-brainers. I wasn't even going against anybody. And then the next year, it was 10 pools were going to come in like that, and then it was 20 pools. And then by the time my 8 years are up, 75% of my jobs are direct referrals. I'm not even competing against anybody.
Yeah.
Whether it be the home builders or the homeowners giving my names out, they're like, hey, you have to use this person. And luckily, I had companies standing behind what I was selling and building it how we were, we should have. So it was like referrals. We were at Claffy, we were doing $35 to $40 million in business and had zero advertising budget. None, because we just didn't need it. You had, we would build down one street, and then we'd do the next door neighbor, and then we'd do the next one, and we would just.
You said that referrals are the key to making money. What in your opinion is the key to getting referrals? You've kind of touched on it. But.
Yeah, I think setting expectations is huge. Timeline and budget. So change orders, I think a lot of people depend on them way too much versus initially bidding it correctly. So
and why do they do that? I have ideas on it. Why do you think they do that? Rely on the change orders.
Well, I think there's 2 reasons. One, they try to go too fast on the planning or bidding process. And 2, they do it just to save themselves because they messed it up, or they're not educated on what they were doing. They got outside their lane.
Yeah. I've seen it also, both of those things, but people want to bid cheap.
Yes.
So they bid cheap, and then, that wasn't in there, and after you're started on the project.
Man, you have no idea how many phone calls I got from clients 6 months after I lost the bid, didn't get the job, and they said, you know what, we should have gone with you because we actually ended up over what you bid us. Yep. After all the change orders, after we signed everything, this wasn't included. We looked back at your contract, it was. So I'm very, at Claffy, with their pricing structure, they had it down to a science. The owner, man, the amount of time he had spent on his pricing and bid structure, it's thousands of hours at minimum. We could bid a $250,000 project literally in 20 minutes. Just clicking, pointing.
Systems and process.
Yes. Yeah. And it would be on the back end, they could print out everything. Here's where the money goes. This is where this goes. Here's all your, your commissions, and here's what's going to the project manager. Here's what, and so it was unbelievable, the systems they had in place. But when you're doing 400 projects a year, you have to have systems like that.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is, the whole time I was working there, we do $250,000, $500,000, $750,000 jobs with 0 change orders.
That's what key to making money is getting referrals. Key to getting referrals, I kind of heard you say, is managing expectations.
Yes,
which
both
is
budget and time.
Yeah, which is just huge. What does managing customer expectations entail? In other words, we can talk about all on this list, but how do you do that with a customer? I think this is critical for every contractor listening.
Yeah, so I have been doing this long enough and been in the sales world, and now I only do 10 to 12 projects, 15 projects a year. But by doing 40 to 50 to 60, which is what I was doing in Texas, I got to see
Everything.
Yeah, I got to see a lifetime in basically 5 years, you know? So I got to see a lot of what not to do and what to do. And I've gotten to the point where I'm so brutally honest with people, it probably loses jobs for me.
It's a key takeaway point here. Brutally honest, brutally implied. You can be polite about it, but you tell them this is how the cow ate the cabbage.
Absolutely.
That's in, that's not in.
Yeah.
Clear expectations. Yeah, I love that.
But I've gotten to the point too where I'm very picky too. Like when someone calls me and I ask them, how did you find me? And they say Google, I automatically say, okay, our first meeting's at my office, because 75% of them will not meet with me because I know they called 6 other people and the other 6 people didn't ask them to meet at the office. But I also know my closing rates from Google are next to nothing.
Right.
So the ones that do meet me in my office and they take time out of their day to come play on my field, I close almost every single one of them.
Right.
So there's some
method for qualifying.
Correct. Yeah, I qualify like crazy. So, but I've also, we've met with people before, and both sides of it. I'll give my honest opinion, and I'll say, we're probably not the right person for this job, and they've also, this fit isn't probably the best, and because for any contractor, I think you have to look at it. You're married to the person for the timeline, and then after.
Yeah, there's just huge maturity in that. I don't know if we have a podcast on it yet, but Grow with No.
Yep.
I know we've got articles on it, but there's a point where you realize, hey, I don't need this money.
Yeah.
This is going to kill me. I'm going to feel good for 15 minutes when they sign it, give me a deposit check.
Yep.
And I'm going to be miserable for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And I have a client who bids projects, told me yesterday he's got a really nice little project going, but that the lady called up and had searched on the internet all the components that went into the project and priced them on the internet, not knowing that a Z40X comes in 50. And I said, forget it. Well, man, it's $65,000. I said, forget it. Forget it. Tell him thank you very much.
Yeah, not enough money.
And
to
he
make it
hasn't
right.
he hasn't said no yet, but I'm really pressing him. I said, just walk away.
Yeah.
Walk away, because how blessed you are to have that kind of sign up front before the pain starts.
Yeah.
Because now you're going to do all the work and not get paid for it.
Yeah. And I think that only comes with experience. I don't know how else you do it other than running into it.
That's what I'm saying. That's a lot of sophistication for a 33-year-old guy.
Yeah.
Sitting there already knowing that.
But I just remember one client specifically, man, in Texas, and he said, man, I built 4 pools, and all 4 pool builders we've sent to the Better Business Bureau. So I'm calling you. I don't care what the cost is. I'm calling you guys because I know you're the best company. And I didn't tell anybody that. I was like, okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll do you a great job. We got turned into the Better Business Bureau. So we learned a big lesson that day, which was it doesn't matter even what you do sometimes. You have to read the red flags when they're there. And you're not, at some point, sometimes it is the client, not, you. And what we got turned into, which is funny because our CEO was sitting on the board of the Better Business Bureau. And what we got turned in on was not even anything we had done, nothing. It was a drainage issue that we didn't even create.
Yeah, but you own it because you'd been in the backyard.
We owned it. We fixed it. It wasn't even a problem. Like nothing ever happened from it. But it was just ironic that I was very young at that point. And instead of it triggering, I've turned in and that's why I'm calling you, I just heard it doesn't matter what it costs, because we're going to do the right thing. Where now if I owned a business and he's like, oh yeah, we did all this, I'd be like, hey man, I appreciate it, but
Yeah.
Probably not the right fit. I don't know what you do.
I mean, this is a major takeaway from today for
absolutely.
everybody
It's
listening,
great.
because that's so hard, especially when you're new or relatively new. You want those sales.
Yeah.
One of our main principles on here is that the purpose of business is to turn cash into more cash. It's not to make sales. It's not even to make profit. It's to make sales and profit and get paid. And if you don't go all the way through that, you haven't done anything.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I think is important too is to try to read the market, because I had friends that are in the industry. I have a huge networking, in all of them, that we could all kind of see this boom coming from COVID, and they're selling all these projects in fall and winter and loading up. Like some of them, they're already booked through next year, and they're like, are you going crazy right now? And I'm like, no, I'm not selling. I said, because in the spring, in the early, or late winter and early spring, nobody's going to have anywhere to go, and I get to name my price at that point.
Right.
So I'm sitting here reading the market as of, I'm not doing small jobs, I'm not cutting margins, I'm not doing anything. I'm turning people away so that in January, February, March, basically, not saying like we're taking advantage of people, but we're taking advantage of the market, which is if there's high-end clients and they have money to spend, we're going to be the only person they can go to at that point.
Right. Man, that's really smart. So let's go back to Dallas.
Yes.
What point, whenever you did end up leaving, were you sales manager at any point, or just doing the same thing? You had your book of clients and getting your own referrals? Yeah,
so I got to the point where I was doing a bunch of referrals. So probably 3 years before I left full time, so 5 years of doing it, I again stole this from my mentor, which was the landscape architect that moved over there. He got an awesome idea, which was basically create a social media presence for his design work and like be a referral point, which basically, yes, we were employees of Claffey Pools, but he wanted people that called in for him specifically to have a point to see his work specifically, because we had 8 or 9 salespeople, and it would happen all the time that they would call in wanting him or whatever, but they wouldn't get him, or it was just another way to push another name out there. Because
right.
Both of those are the same way. When you're closing rates 2 to 3 times higher for referrals, at the end of the day, that was what it became, is who can get the most referrals.
Right.
So anyways, that's what I did. About 5 years into it, I created my own brand, which was called Schindler Design Co. And I truly had no bad intentions. My company didn't like it.
Gotcha.
They still don't like it. They still don't like that my mentor had Farley Designs, and he's been working for him for 12 years.
Yeah.
But
was he on commission?
Yes.
You're saying that car dealers, you'll occasionally see a car dealer, a salesman with his own bill or her own billboard.
Yeah.
You're on commission. Pay me $200,000 a month, and I'll take that sign down.
Yeah, and so there's this real gray area, and my big thing was, and again, for all their amazing traits that company had, they didn't. I don't want to say that they didn't like education, but they didn't see, I don't think, a value in going to trade shows and going to higher education events for our position. I think their thought on it was more, we're in charge, let us do those things, and you guys just stay in your role.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So my big thing, and part of why, again, it was a gray area, is I'm sitting here, dropping $5,000 to go to Vegas for a week and take a $3,000 course to further myself, and I wasn't getting reimbursed for it. So I'm like, well, if you're not going to promote me, if you're not going to do this, then I'm going to do it myself, even though I'm still under your umbrella. So I don't know the right answer to it. I don't know what I would do if it was my employee, but I don't know that they had a choice, because we're at the point where we're bringing so many people into our own, and they're getting the construction of it.
Yeah.
So it's, again, it's a weird.
I feel like companies have to invest in professional development, and they should jump at opportunities when your employee says, hey, I really want to buy this book or take this course or go to this conference. You should be like, yeah, what can I pay for? What can I do to help?
Yeah.
Because and even side gigs, hey, I want to do this on the side, whatever. man, that you're going to learn from that experience and you're going to improve our company.
Yep.
And then you're going to feel like I care about you as well because I actually am investing in your development. And then that may retain you longer and help the company grow. I mean, there's just so many benefits to it.
Well,
and it's short-sighted to think it's not.
I almost thought of, and I'd mentioned it. I'm like, look, make me sign a non-compete or something, or a contract that says you're going to pay for this much education, but I'm on retainer for this long, or I pay you back.
Right.
There's, for every $5,000 in education I get, I'm, 2 years in the hole for,
Sure.
it I recycles or something. I mean, there's got to be something. So basically, I got to the point where I was kind of normal basic sales. Then I got into high end, and then I got into what we were calling our elite division. Which was, 2 or 3 of us out of the 9 that were, when a call came in and they said they had $150,000, $200,000 budget plus, we got assigned to it.
Gotcha.
So usually that entailed a lot of slope, a lot of, different
The
material.
river, swim up bars, big diving cliff.
Yeah, so that's where I kind of peaked there, and I worked there for the last 3 years, kind of when I started my own side deal. That's where I got to, that was kind of the peak. But that's when I started evaluating things too, because Mike, again, he's however many years old. He's been in the industry for 40 years, 30 years, and he's technically in the same position I am and always has been.
Yep.
So I'm sitting here looking at my future, and there's 3 owners of Claffey. I'm never breaking into ownership.
Mm-hmm.
They're not family. Are they 3 family members?
Yes,
Okay.
brother and
Yeah.
2 sisters. Sorry, 2 brothers and a sister that bought it from their parents. Which they're awesome.
Yeah.
But there's a brick wall, and there's several Claffeys that work there. They have kids, stuff like that. So eventually they'll probably be the ones that take it over. And then I'm also looking at I'm already making more money than my sales manager. Right. So that's not really I don't know that I want that stress, nor do I want to take a pay cut.
Sure.
His is salaried, mine's commission, but I don't want to take a pay cut. And then one day, when you have 20 to 30 active jobs, even though I wasn't running the jobs, I'm getting phone calls. And usually by the time things progress past the project manager and back to the salesperson, it was not good phone calls. But there was one morning specifically, and it was 7 o'clock. And by 7 o'clock, I had 12 calls from clients. And my wife, and I hadn't slept much the night before. I've been staying up, drawing all night, getting stuff ready. And my wife looked at me and she said, if you're going to kill yourself, you should do it for yourself and not for someone else.
Yeah.
And I
Good wife.
yeah. And I don't know.
A lot of times it's the other way.
Yeah. And I don't,
From a
it all
spouse.
dropped out on that day. And I was just man, you're absolutely right. If I'm sitting here and I'm working 60-hour weeks, if I'm making commission, if I'm doing all this stuff, and I don't see a point of it, doing it for someone else when I can kind of make the rules and doing it on my own.
Yeah.
Because the biggest thing was working for a company that large, out of those, 10, 12 calls, 15 calls I'm getting, I'm not in control of any of it because it's already been passed on to a project manager. So halftime, I didn't even know what was going on them because that wasn't my role at that point.
Right.
So it started looking brighter and brighter. I started crunching numbers of, okay, I need this, do this to make my living that I want to make, take care of my family. And I'm like, man, the 40 or 50 projects, 30 to 50 projects I need to do a year, I only need to do 8, 10 if I own my own company.
Yeah.
Yes, there's headaches. Yes, there's overhead. There's all this. But when you're making the whole pie instead of the little piece of the pie,
Makes a difference.
And then I also am sitting there thinking, those 12 phone calls I was getting, that's divides that to 3 phone calls. I can probably deal with 3 phone calls.
Right.
So we're seeing the big plus, which congratulations on that. What was the big minus to going out on your own? What, if there were any? But I'm sure there were, because it's a scary deal, usually.
It was tough to leave that company. Anytime you're in a kind of a comfortable situation, that was a minus. Just, again, there were stresses involved, but also knowing you had that support system there was tough. Money, obviously, is a big thing. Yeah. Just being scared of the unknown. But I don't know. I wasn't afraid to fail.
Yeah.
My dad started a mechanic shop when he was 16, 17 years old, and by the time he was 18 he owned it, and he was a mechanic for 10 plus years, and he opened a car dealership and owned that. So I saw
So
that.
you have an entrepreneurial influence in your background.
Correct. And he did that in a small town and did great. And then my father-in-law, he didn't start his family farm, but he grew it from one farm to 12 farms. And then my stepdad, he was in the oil business, but he was always in, sales and stuff. So he's kind of on an island too.
Sure.
And so basically every man that's been in my life has had some sort of like sales and entrepreneurial spirit. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. So I've always seen that. So it wasn't like, I think people are concerned about the failure portion of it, but I wasn't. I know that I don't want to let my kids down. I don't want to let my wife down, but I know that, at the end of the day, we could figure that out.
Yeah.
So, and I also told my owner, I said, man, there's a chance that in a year or 2 years, I'm sitting here on the doorstep begging for my job back.
Yeah.
Were they hostile to your leaving at all? Or did they congratulate you? A lot of times
it was
people
weird.
say, see you later.
No, really weird. I did it because they're a top company, because they had treated me so well, paid me fair. I did it the best way I knew how, which is I told them when I went in and told them I was leaving, I said, I'm going to close out every single job that I am touching right now. I'm going to leave, I think 90 days, because that's what kind of looked at the timeline. I said, I will get past every client, every lead that you've given me, through all the clients. I'll get them to the point where they need to be. We won't tell anybody that I'm even leaving for the first two months, so that you can start on replacing me if you need to. You can start on whatever you need to do. But I want to do this the way that we're all good when I leave. And I think they definitely respected that.
So is that what happened?
Yeah.
Because you know what happens sometimes when people do that.
Yeah.
No, you're leaving today.
Yeah.
See you later.
I don't know that they were in a position to do that, because we were all kind of barely hanging on still on a lot of, it's just, the nature of a busy construction field.
Right.
So I knew that was the way I was going to do it. But it also gave me time to plan my business. But it was in works a year before I left. So I knew the kind of time.
What about capital to start your business? You'd done your spreadsheets or math or however you want to do it, and seeing what potential profits out there. A lot of people overlook I got to come up with $500,000 before I can make $1 million.
Yeah, the capital, I'm very blessed that I had a family member that kind of had seen, what we had done and offered to give us a loan at a certain percentage that was lower than what I could get at the bank.
Yeah.
We had saved up and done, some things on our end too, knowing that we were going to start it. But you're right, the working capital has been the biggest hurdle, because at any given time, I can be on the hook for, even with one project, I can be out $50,000 to $60,000 of my own cash and front loading that, until I'm getting paid in 2 weeks or something like that. So I did a couple things to combat that. Is 75% of my job, the price of my job, is paid in the first 3 draws. I have 6 total draws. I think it's fair because the brunt of my work is done up front too, like the concrete, the excavation, all the big ticket items. So I tell all my clients, again, going back to brutally honest, they're like, man, your contract's very front end loaded. I said, well, your project's very front end loaded.
Right.
So I want to pay with your project, with your money.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. I'll make my profits at the end, but your project's going to get paid for with your money.
Yeah.
And you have the courage to tell them that too.
Yeah. Again, you're married to them. If you can't talk about money.
Yeah. You're not going to have a good marriage.
Example in my book.
Plug.
Be in the show notes. But other guy who did that, he was scared to ask for it because he was so worried about money. He thought everybody else was worried about money, and finally he just had it. He said, I'm done with this. Started asking for deposits, no problem.
Yeah.
No problem. You know what I'm worried about, Martin?
What?
I'm worried about your mic. I'm worried that you're so far from your mic, we're going to have some quality issues.
Well, quality issues with me?
Yeah.
Well, that's how they know it's me. I'm the one that fades in and sounds old and uses arcane words.
Yeah.
Ethan, that's up to you to tell me to.
No, I can. It's a segment now. We're gonna have it every episode.
We have to have the
Martin, time to check your mic now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we had a family member that offered to loan us some working capital,
good,
which is awesome. And then we were able to work out a really solid timeline for payback and stuff like that.
Good.
So basically, for the first 2 years of business, I knew I wouldn't need to be paying anything back. So I had time to invest, and they were fine with it too. On
good.
Taking that risk.
Any ownership, or it was a loan?
They were giving ownership, yes, and then it flip-flopped. It's flip-flopping this year after that 2 years. So
flip-flopping meaning
they were majority owner
for
our loss years.
Okay.
And now we're majority for the profit years.
That's very kind of them.
Yeah. Well, if they wanted some control and things like that, if they say doing something stupid, they.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was all worked out, and we paid a legal team to do it the right way.
Another key point: you paid an attorney.
Oh yeah.
Lessons.
Seriously.
However many lessons we have, guys, that get an attorney to do attorney's work.
Yeah,
stuff matters. It matters.
If you don't have $10,000 to drop on the paperwork and all the front end of just getting it established, like that's probably the first key.
You're not ready to do it.
Yeah, I mean that's the truth. So
yeah,
just getting all the paperwork in place and
really
doing
good.
all these things. But I did I put a business
plan together.
Business plan together, Excel spreadsheets, and I keep those updated and
good.
All those things. But anyways, yeah, I know not everybody's is lucky to have that, but we were
everybody's lucky in some.
Yes.
I mean, everybody's lucky at something. So just because that's not a reason to not do it because you don't have a brother-in-law, father-in-law, sister-in-law, cousin, uncle, whatever paying it. You've got something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So go find out what it is.
I will also say when you can show that you have 8 years in a row of doing what you do and doing it at a high level, it's probably easier for the bank or for anybody to look at it and say, okay, this is probably going to be a pretty solid bet.
Yeah, for sure. So you've been in business for about 18 months, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so your first job, when did it come? How did you get it? You started, what month did you start?
So it was August. But yeah, kind of. I say 18 months because that's when we been in Oklahoma. So
yeah, tell me about the decision to move to Oklahoma.
Okay, so we got to go back a few steps.
Okay.
One of the things that I did not want is to compete in the same market.
Yeah.
As my old company.
Gotcha.
Because I again, it goes back to...
You wanted to be on good terms with them.
Yes, it's part of it. I wanted to leave on good terms as much as I could, and I didn't think being a direct competitor and taking all the subcontractors and the network and the builders and just...
Yeah.
I didn't see that as the way to go about it.
Right.
So I knew being in college here, having friends that were in the Oklahoma City, Tulsa area, that there's a big lack in Oklahoma of professionals, like high-end professionals.
Right.
They're just very limited on options. And I remember we would go tour some estates and tour some high-end homes, and you have a $4 or $5 million home, and the pool in the backyard's like $100,000, which is fine. That's super nice.
Sure.
But on a $5 million house, like a lot of times you'll see like, I don't know, a $500,000 backyard or something. Right. And again, there were some companies that are doing it, but I saw if there's any market that needs another 10 to 12, 15 projects at the high end, like Oklahoma City is it.
Gotcha.
Just because I was very confident in my design skills and my presentations, in my construction knowledge, that I could come in and jump straight in without advertising, without doing anything, and I could just break into the market. I knew when I first came here, like the whole day of like taking only high-end jobs in Texas and working the luxury market, like that was gone. Right. When I came here, it was going back to the basics. Like you got a $60,000 budget for a pool, like that's whatever. We'll figure it out.
Right.
So basically what happened, we were going to move here. We moved here in August of 2019, I guess.
Yep.
But I put my website up in May just because I was like, maybe I can stir the pot a little
Were
bit.
you still were you still working at Claffey?
No, I was not
Okay.
at that point.
Gotcha.
We had our second child.
Okay, so you took some time off.
Yes, I took a couple months off just to kind of get some stuff, scheduled. And quite honestly, I had planned on the first probably 4 months and that's what we planned on, like, financially. The first 4 months after I left, like, we're just reaching out to subcontractors, seeing their work, visiting with them, because I didn't want to get them on a job, and that's the first time I had seen what they do.
It's really, really smart.
Yeah, so I had budgeted for that. So I'm like, well, I'll just throw my website up, and just put it online.
Yeah.
And in the first 2 weeks it was up, I had 4 or 5 calls and leads. And so I actually sold my first project in May, and we weren't even going to be open until August.
Wow.
But we actually came up here, and I said, man, here's what's going on. I said, I'm not even up there. I have some subcontractors.
I was going to ask you, where'd you get the subs?
Well, I'd met with them, and
Yeah.
I tried to find a good network by calling around, by finding people. But I basically told them all, and I was, again, brutally honest. I said, I'm going to do your pool for 10%. Like, that's my profit margins on this. And I may fire people halfway through it and kick them off a job and bring someone in, because I don't know how it's going to end.
Right.
Like, I'm confident that we'll do it the right way, but it may take 2 or 3 crews to do it the right way.
Right.
And they all, and your benefit is you're getting a project for 10, 12,
Fraction of the
14%
cost.
discount. And that's, it is what it is. So that's how we did it. We treated our first 3 clients with a very low profit job. In fact, actually one we did for a family friend for just whatever cost was. Again, because I knew they were comfortable enough where I could really, is almost a training project for
Your crews.
for our crews. So that's kind of how we established and how we got going. I even had a couple home builders reach out to me, and I told them, one's in COE actually, and I said, man, I'm not even comfortable taking your clients yet. I said, let me get, like, I want to build 5, 6, 7 projects first, and then I want to reach back out to
that
you.
sandstone layer up there in Edmond that isn't in Norman.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah, no, there's some definite surprises there, but I just know once you burn a home builder's bridge, you're done. Like, it's gone forever. And home builders are part of my biggest market, because
Yep.
if they're building 4 or 5 really nice custom homes a year and I get all their leads, and I'm the only one that builds with them. So anyways, I tried to take everything I had learned over at that point, being in the industry for like 12, 13 years, and say, how can I look at this the long term, not short term? Like, I can't rush this. So that was kind of the strategy of getting up here. So when we got here in August, things obviously got better. I built 2 projects while I wasn't even here. I finished one of them, so we literally opened the pool before I even moved to Oklahoma.
Wow.
But we got them done, and we're about to build them a second pool, so obviously we did good enough.
They need another one in the same yard, or did they move?
No, they're building a new house right now. Yeah.
I thought everybody needs 2 pools.
Yeah, no. So we're, but that's kind of how I got up here to Oklahoma, was noticing there was a need for it, and what's I had projected on kind of hitting that basic and intermediate market, and then getting into the luxury market. Probably, realistically, I was hoping for 3 years, but really planning on about 5. And what I've actually done now is, like, for the past even 9 months, that's all we're doing is
Just
high-end
luxury.
stuff.
And I'm assuming that a lot of that has to do with the COVID situation, right?
That, and I was just surprised. I guess on the higher end market, again, there's only so many companies, and there's only so many companies that can present it right and do it the right way, and there's a market for it. So a lot of my competitors that I would normally even compete with, they're booked up, and I'm not booked up. It's on some of them, and that's awesome, because then we get it. And then with others, I'm beating them in competitions too. But I guess it's just the right time. The market's good. I was worried with oil and gas going down, but again, we just kind of broke into that market. And once you're there, you as long as you
Right.
treat
Once
everybody
you get
right and
2
you
or
do
3,
it right.
You got some pictures.
Yeah. That was again part of the reason why I left a market, is because I had 8 years of just killer projects, and I was like, if I lose this portfolio, I don't even have a company to start, So that was part of my agreement. I was like, I'm going to give you, a long term.
But you got to take pictures and say I was the designer.
But I get to keep my work. I will bring it. I will, label it as Claffey Pools built it, but I want all my pictures for my website. I want all my referrals, everything. Yeah, and they said that was fine as long as I was moving out of market.
Right.
Wow, that's so important. And I think obviously in the high-end market, it's a little bit easier to tell, but even in the low-end market, pictures are so important for contractors, and not enough of them. They're just putting up their cell phone, just sideways picture kind of, and snap it, and then they leave, And it's so important.
It's funny. I haven't done this, but a few of my colleagues have, and they'll actually put an option at the end for the clients to pay for photos.
Yep.
And it's funny that
good
clients
idea.
will actually pay, like say, hey, by the way, it's $250. It's actually $500 for professional photos, but I'll cover half if you want to cover the other half.
And we'll bring a drone in and do the whole
and they'll
thing.
do
and
the
you can send it to
professional
your
photo
whole family.
shoot. And he's amazing that all of them would click it. They're like,
Yep.
well, heck yeah, if we're going to spend $100,000, we're going to spend $250 to get pictures of it because we want to be on your website.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
all of them, but I'm like, wow,
Ooh, I like that.
My brain has never worked like that.
I had
you know?
never. Yeah.
I'm just always writing it
they
in.
Want those photos on their Instagram. They want to send it to family. That's what they want to show their, country club friends, whatever. Hey, yeah, check out our pool.
Yeah.
And people are like, whoa, that's a pool.
It was so good they used it on their website.
yeah, and that's,
We're the top banner photo on their website,
Yeah.
so that's our pool.
We made a special web page for just them and gave them that URL. They don't realize everybody has their own page.
yeah, and it's honestly funny because some of the clients you wouldn't think would be that person are the people that are that
Yep.
person, and then the ones that you would like, man, this guy is like the flashiest guy I've ever seen. So what I do on all my contracts, right next to the financials, I have a photo and name release clause, and they sign off. Are we allowed to take pictures and release your name on social media? Yes. Or are we allowed to take pictures and not release your name? Yes. Or do you not want any pictures or any name attached to it? So they have to sign off at the front end. Obviously, if they want to change halfway through. But we're very clear, again, on the front end. So we can post, hey, the Smiths just got their shotcrete in. Check this out.
Yep.
And we know already. We don't even have to ask them at the end if we can get professional photos because they've already, told us we can. I think that's important. I don't think a lot of contractors are looking at that because I've seen both of that too, where people are posting on social media and the client calls like, hey, let's not post I'm the mayor, I don't want people knowing
Right.
that I got this backyard and stuff, or other people, that would be comfortable that were like, well, man, it's a professional athlete. We probably shouldn't be putting out there. And they're like, no, dude, whatever you want to put out is fine. So now if you're clear about it on the front end, there's really no question.
How many people employed in your company?
2, my wife and I.
2.
Yeah.
The rest are 1099 subcontractors.
Correct.
So, everything you've just described is just a list of processes.
That's it.
I mean, is this just in your brain? If I asked you to sit down and write out the processes, could you download them? Could you lay them out for people? Are you at that level with processes and systems?
No, it's 100% in my brain. And I think that's where it's not the best situation because, again, left brain, right brain people.
Right.
I am a designer at heart. That's what I want to do and build and create. So when it comes to the business side, I'm not as strong on that side. I know what things should cost. I know what they usually end up costing. I keep track of all that stuff. But when it comes to hey, every client, this is the process we go with, and this is our sales process. This is when we take leads, we put them in this system. This is how we track everything.
Well, I was even thinking along the lines of, I want to take pictures. You got to remember, oh man, they're digging today. I want the pictures of that. And I forgot.
Yeah.
How did that's another reason it's hard to get pictures is it's hard to be available and at the right time.
Yeah. Well, we're lucky that we only have generally about max of 6 projects going at any given time. So since I'm the one scheduling it, since I'm doing everything, intentionally, I know everybody that's at every job at all times.
Right.
So, and what day they're going to be there, and I know the process. I map out, And again, that customer transparency. I have an app that the customer, I have cameras on all my job sites. If they have internet, so if they have Wi-Fi on site, we have a live stream camera at all times. So
Wow, and available to you and them.
And
I
them,
presume.
yes.
I mean, they can also look out the window.
for sure,
But they can watch it from the
But my
office.
clients almost all travel for work or travel for fun or whatever, and then they get to log in at any time on their phone or their computer. And yes, it costs money for those programs, but it's funny. I sell about 1 to 2 projects a year because of the program.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Because one guy, I was like, how did you find my, how did you hear about us? He's like, oh, so-and-so I saw him, you were digging his pool on his work computer, so he said to call you. So he had it pulled up on his second screen watching them dig the pool.
Yeah.
And they were just, the people at work were like, oh my gosh.
Wow, that's brilliant.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So but on that program I pay for, it's kind of like Builder Trend, but it's not, it's 4 pools. It's called Pentair Pool Builder. But on that program, it's actually a scheduling app too. And you can decide if you want to show them the schedule or not. But I always do. I schedule their whole job out from the very start.
Yeah.
So I say, hey, this is going to change due to weather and due to availability and stuff. But this is what my projected outcome is. I told you it was going to be an 8 to 10 week project. Here's the 8-week layout. It may push 2 weeks because of weather, and it may push 6 weeks because of weather. But by doing that, in 18 months, I bet I get 1 call a week asking what's going on this week, maybe. And in my old job, we didn't have a program like that. We didn't have a scheduling like that, and that's what all my calls were. It's like, hey, who's going to be here? What's going to go on? And by running you through that app, they just log into their app and they know
can see everything.
Yeah,
So
they know
important.
know when people are supposed to be there, and they also understand that, hey, just because they finished 2 days early doesn't mean someone else is coming the next day.
They've got other
It means
jobs.
this is what your schedule is, and we're probably going to stick to it because it just runs better that way. So even though my steel guy finished 2 days early, we're still shotcreting next Thursday.
Right.
Because that's what it's always been.
Yeah, and that guy's doing other jobs.
Correct, yeah.
Just because he got done early doesn't mean everybody did.
Correct.
Yeah. Talk more about the decision to make sure that it was only you and your wife as employees, and that you chose the right subs and you kept them as subs.
Yeah, so even though my last company, we were doing 300 or 400 jobs a year, we really only did a couple of things in-house. We would do cleaning grades, and we would do like drainage, and I think we had a couple deck crews. So the advantage to in-house labor, I believe, is that you can really kind of train the guys to do it your way. You can oversee them on that. But I think there's a flaw in that too. So my big thing is I have 1099 subs, but they know when they step on my job site, this is how we do things, and this is how I've trained them to do it. I don't care what they do on other job sites, but this is how we do it my way. And I only work with guys, like I remember meeting with one sub up here, and I'm like, okay, well, I want this mix. I want this done like this for me. Do you think you can handle that? And they're like, man, we don't do it that way. We do it this way for all our guys. I'm like, that's fine. That's not my sub. So like when it came to tile and coping, I didn't, when people gave me, hey, call this guy, he does every pool. I'm like, well, I've seen the tile work in pools. I don't want to call that guy. So my tile guys are home remodelers that specialized in bathroom renovations. So basically I've trained them, this is how we do pool tile, because it's completely different than home tile. Completely. Sure. The waterproofing process, it's a four-day deal for a simple tile job. And I pay them for their time. I pay them way above 25-30% above the going rate, but they do it my way.
They show up on time?
Oh yeah, they do. And I have some labor or some guys that are 1099s that I would almost consider employees, because they call me and ask me what we're doing this week. It's not like
Don't say that to the IRS.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
They set their own schedules and have their own tools. I know that.
Well, I think they want work, so I just tell them what my schedule's looking like, and they see if they want to meet it or not.
Yeah, there you go.
But I know what you're saying, yes. But they're not. It's just I'm not afraid to show them my knowledge and then go run off and do it for other people, because I know people aren't willing to pay what I'm going to pay them. So, and then I've told all my subs too that, if they need a paycheck that day or the next day, we'll pay them. They get the job done, we'll pay them. Yeah. So money is not going to be ever be the issue with our company. So I just know that's
I
how
think
you,
we could almost do a whole show on it, but that's one of the really important things. What does it take to accumulate and keep good subs?
Yeah.
Because they determine your outcome in many respects.
absolutely.
And people that try to lowball them, you go to the cheap guy, the guy who never shows up, just compounding problems.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm already qualifying people by, you're not willing to invest in me and you put your time and money into getting a quality project, then why would I do the same thing with subcontractors?
Right.
Yeah.
Turn around and do that. People are hiring me because they're wanting a better and more thought out project, so I'm going to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So we are sitting here about a year exactly from whenever COVID hit the MBA. What's COVID? Yeah, okay.
What's that?
So a lot's changed. We've kind of, we thought it might be 2 weeks or something like that at that point a year ago, but obviously we're kind of still in it. What was the big impact right from the beginning for you? What was your thought process whenever you found out, Thunder canceled their season, stuff like that? What were you thinking?
So I think we'll probably have a different answer depending on region, but I'll tell you the craziest thing that happened here is when COVID truly hit. That was the same week, really, that oil and gas literally went negative.
Yeah.
And I told I was sitting in the bathroom getting ready for work one day, and I told my wife, I said, they usually put like a scenario in like entrepreneur books of like what to do with this. And I was like, but I think I might have glossed over the chapter like what happens when a worldwide pandemic strikes the same week as your main like market drops through the floor.
Below zero.
Like literally through the floor. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. And it was a lot of and for 2 weeks in the spring when we should get phone calls, we got nothing for 2 straight weeks. And you start kind of questioning a lot of things at that point. Yeah. And we were doing fine. We had jobs kind of lined up, not like we do this spring, but we did. But we had at that point, only been in town for really 6 months. Yeah. And it was our first spring when I'm expecting business and blah, on and on. And it was a weird time. And then just the weirdest thing happens is that third week, I bet we got 15 phone calls because I think everybody had sat for 2 weeks in their home and started thinking like, well, we're not probably going on vacation this year. Yeah. Like the kids are going to I literally got a phone call from a guy and said, I have to have my kids out of the house this summer. Like, can you please build a pool? Because he's like, there's no way we can make it through a summer with not going on vacation or having sports or activities or camps or anything like that. So it went from this weird, I don't know what's going to happen and our market's not doing well and all of that to this boom of phone calls and people the question wasn't, it was how fast can you get something done at that point? Right. So the pool industry was not ready for it at all. Yeah. We're still on some ordering issues from last October and not getting equipment in and stuff like that. But the pool industry itself has seen a huge uptick. And I think a lot of remodelers, just
everything home related is soaring.
Going crazy.
Yeah.
Lumber's
Home
crazy
Depot,
right now.
Lowe's.
Yeah. It's crazy. So we again have rode that wave, but I will express with caution with the thing contractors, and again why I want to be small is a lot of companies will start hiring and adding because they have this extra work. And again, I'm just playing that middle grounds of we'll do the work, but we're going to stay right in the middle. We're not riding that highway. We're not going to hire 8 people. We're not going to buy all new company trucks. We're going to just sit there right in the middle and we'll be comfortable. We have money coming in, but we're not going to get too high. And I think again, that's one of the things that I worked out when I did all my numbers is it made way more sense to just pay myself a comfortable salary than ride the waves up and down.
Yeah, for sure. So we had a really cool experience. And by really cool, I mean really cool.
Can you cut stuff out of this, or do we have to play everything? Really cool experience.
So we had a really cold experience about 3 weeks ago now. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is it only that long ago?
Yeah.
Feels like it was longer. But Yeah, temperatures dropped below zero for a good while.
Well, at my house,
12 days?
17
Yeah.
below was the lowest I personally saw. And
So
less than a week
wild.
later, it was 73. So it was a 90-degree swing in 6 days.
So crazy. So that obviously that does a lot to pools.
Yeah, it's not fun, especially, I mean, we don't close our pools. We don't winterize our pools. We just don't believe in it.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm sure you had conversations with like clients, and when they ask you, so what do you do in the winter? Like, just leave the pump running.
yeah, I remember the brutally honest thing. I'm like, oh no, our temperatures, we never get cold enough for long enough, you know?
Well, at least we're not Texas where the house water lines go in outside the wall and poke in,
Yeah, that
where
is
they
true.
just got annihilated.
Yeah.
But, you know, I got
Tell me about that. Tell me the day that you got, like, you knew it was dropping, you started getting calls.
So, I guess being a builder and watching an outdoor builder, especially, I watch the weather. I watch the news with a grain of salt because
Yeah.
they're so extreme all the time.
Yeah. They're looking for clicks.
I know that their intentions are probably good, but when they tell me it's going to be 8 inches of rain, like it's going to be 3 maybe.
Yeah.
Typically, sometimes. But then so I kind of kept putting it off, and I think all of us kind of did.
Yeah.
Because it kind of, they projected it probably 7, 10 days, 14 days in advance.
Right.
And like as it got closer and closer, it kind of, you could almost feel in the air like, okay, this is
for real.
This is for real, and this is about to happen.
Yeah.
So none of my colleagues that are a lot in Texas and Oklahoma, none of us have really dealt with a freeze to that extent. But
Yeah.
really, it's not even the cold temperatures; it was the duration of it.
Yeah.
Because all of our systems have freeze protection on them, and they'll run water and they'll keep water moving. And because it's buried, 24 inches in ground, it's like a geothermal heater. It's not ever gonna.
Mm-hmm.
The top of the surface may freeze, but the actual guts of the pool, as long as your pumps can stay on, you really don't have to worry about it. So that was kind of the theory that we all went into. Okay, let's just run all of our equipment. It'll go on freeze protection. We'll be okay. So I sent out a mass text message to all my clients, and I said, this is what's going to happen. Don't worry too much. As long as your pumps are running, you're good. But I will say, watch your automation. Make sure your pumps are running. If power goes out, let me know, because that is when we're in major issue. The other thing I did is I had my guys run out to every single job we had built, and we tarped all the pool equipment.
Why?
So the thinking behind it, and again, for better or for worse, this is kind of what me and some of my buddies came up with, which was we put a 6 mil tarp over the top of it with some bricks, that the heat from the pump circulating would actually kind of keep those above ground lines warm, and in effect, it really did help.
Yeah.
So
in Nebraska, we used to put a 100-watt light bulb in there.
Yeah.
The problem is that 100-watt LED light bulb puts out zero heat. So things have changed, but a pump, that's great.
So we thought about that for sure. The issue was at that time they were already calling for like power outages. So I'm like, man, I can't go tell everybody throw a space heater or something out there, because they were saying conserve energy and they're saying all this stuff. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to be like that. And the pumps truly, as long as we covered them up, should have been fine. But our major, we could all see the writing on the wall. If the power is out, that's when you're in trouble. So I developed a little thing that was kind of here's what to do if your power goes out, which is basically winterize on site your equipment. And at that point, we had snow, we had ice, so it wasn't going to be us. It was going to be us FaceTiming or walking people through to winterize their pool or their pool equipment at minus 12 degrees in the middle of the night. But at
Trying to get a pipe wrench to fit that union, which they don't have.
Yeah, but there was this weird deal because, again, we go back to change orders and stuff, but I feel terrible because I've told all these clients, like, hey, our pools are fine in the winter.
Yeah.
And I feel a responsibility to withhold that.
Sure.
And I don't want to tell people, hey, I know you just spent $10,000 on this equipment 6 months ago, but you're now responsible for $10,000 more because in the contract it states we're not, act of God's weather events are not our responsibility, which is the truth, and that's how we would have had to approach it. But I don't want to be that guy.
Right.
So I was just scared to death. I mean, we didn't sleep at all hardly, just hoping the power didn't go out. So we were insanely lucky that Oklahoma didn't have the power outages.
We had one.
We had,
I think there was like
we had
one
them
hour.
rolling for an hour, but
Yes,
it was
yes.
during the day, and I drained my pool during that hour.
Yeah, you got.
But we didn't know at the
Equipment.
time. We didn't know it was only going to be one.
Right.
I
No,
mean-
it looked like they were going to cycle through.
and they only ended up
continuously.
doing like
Yeah.
one, I think, or two maybe, and for some people.
So, and for the few clients had that, the one in Norman in particular, they had the rolling blackout. I said, give it 45 minutes. If it's longer than 45 minutes, you have to drain the equipment. And that kicked back on right at 45 minutes, I think, is what it was. And that was the only one, luckily, that they had. We had one in Oklahoma City, and I'm still not 100% sure why, but they didn't reach out to me when it did the blackout hit, and theirs was gone for 4 hours. So by the time he did reach out, it was too far gone. Luckily, really, we only lost about, I would say about $1,000 worth of work and equipment total. So it wasn't, it wasn't $10,000 or what I was expecting it might be. The funny one, not funny for him probably because we got to replace it, but we lost on one project. The client was trying to break the ice and realized he wasn't chipping ice away, and that it was his glass tile on his tanning ledge. So that wasn't ice shooting up; it was glass. And so we
can tell the difference. The glass sinks and the ice floats when you chip it up.
So that was a fun one.
Oh my gosh!
Because he was contemplating whether he should hit it with shovel. And I said, man, we'll send our guys out. Really, don't worry about it. Because to be fair, his had an issue. His overflow, he had a spillway from his tanning ledge to his pool, and the spillway blocked up with ice because it's so thin of water going across there. It dammed up. So he actually had water coming back onto his pool deck. So he was trying to break up that spillway before figuring out that that's what he was chipping away was his own glass. And he got it working, but in effect we got to go switch out glass. But
well, that's hard because then the glass is just chilling on the bottom, and that's not easy to clean up.
Yeah, it wasn't a great situation, but he got taken care of. But again, we were very lucky in Texas. In Texas, I think the average time to live in a home is 3 years. So most people even living there didn't even know who built their pool, so they didn't even know who to reach out to for help. None of the companies I know Claffey, my old company, and Golke, the company before that, they were very proactive on reaching out to their clients and saying this is what to do, but I just don't think enough knew what to do in the winterizing and things like that. So when their power went out for days,
oh man,
it literally just exploded their pool equipment from the inside out.
I had a friend whose toilets froze in his house. It's just crazy what happened down there.
And it's funny, all these contractors from the Northeast and the North, I mean, they just laugh at us and they're like, we deal with like that temperatures all the time. But, which is true, they do, but I don't think they deal with the power going out for 4 days.
Yeah.
And not to the effect of like, we're not used to the power going out for 4 days in a negative 15 degree temperature.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Neither are they.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like the same. If a tornado is coming at our house, like I'm like, hey, it's like every spring, right? It's not that big of a deal. But if they move here, they're like, oh my gosh, there's a tornado a mile away.
I have a client in northern Canada, northern Alberta, and I was bemoaning our minus 17 and texting him, and he goes, you rookies, and he sent me back his minus 46. He goes, man, I wish it'd warm up to minus 17 here. It would be great.
It was funny though, on social media I posted, I think it was finally the day the sun came out when it broke, and I go, man, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm so excited it's 16 degrees and I can get out and about and get on my way.
Got up to 15.
Like finally so 16 and sunny, let's go get some stuff done.
You know, we kind of had you here a long time. There are a couple of things I'd like to kind of recap from a listener standpoint.
Yeah, go ahead.
I hope I'm not ambushing you with this, but 18 months, we know you have a history before that, but 18 months, can you give us an idea of the range of what annualized sales would be, if you're willing to?
Yeah, absolutely. So last year we closed out at 1.7 million.
Okay, first year in business.
Okay. Yes. And then this year we're already on the books for right at 2.1 million.
Okay, so that's not bad. I don't know.
Not close to that.
18 months and you're only at 3 point what? I didn't catch the math, but maybe 3-4 million in 18 months.
Yeah, right.
What's
almost
the What's the matter with you?
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe this year you get to work. No, that's impressive. 4% of all the companies in the world or in the U.S. and there are 30 million. Only 4% ever make it to $1 million. So there's a lot behind that. I don't want people driving around saying, "What?" There's a history. There's the training behind that.
Right.
But that's important. It can be done, and basically, it's deciding to do it.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Second thing, if you're willing to say, what type of margins do you typically try to bid for? I mean, of the sales, how much of what percentage of the sales winds up being gross profit, not profit, but gross profit?
Yeah, I mean, we're almost all of our projects when we first moved in here, we entered the marketplace again like at 10 to get into the first 3 projects, and then after that we bumped it up to 20.
Okay.
Was kind of our markup rate. Like cost, I mean, when I say that, again, I'm not great on the business side, but it was just a cost factor of times 1.2. It wasn't even a true 20%, I guess.
Right.
So we would just do a cost factor of 1.2, but now, I mean, we're pretty comfortably at 1.25.
Okay.
So I guess that's a true 20% markup at that point.
Okay. I got a book right here
Yeah.
that literally I'm going to give you.
Yeah, please.
Once it's no longer propping up this camera.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. Sorry, will seem a little bit random, but you said you manage customer expectations.
Mm-hmm.
In a recap, how the hell do you do that? Okay, because I believe that's one of the most important things in contracting. And I like to talk about an expectation sheet. You've done a lot of pools, however many you've done in 10 years now or 8 years before.
We're approaching almost 300.
Okay, so 300 pools worth of experience. And the average person you go talk to has built 0 pools.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you, I mean, one thing was you talked about laying out your schedule, which I think is a wonderful starting place. But how about the things, well, I thought that was included, or that's not included, or we're going to tear up your sprinkler system, that's a fact.
Yep.
We're not paying for it. Do you understand that? We're going to tear your fence up. How do you literally handle that?
So, again, I come from a place where our bid model was so tight and we were just so detailed in everything that they did. So I took a lot of those processes and put them into mine, which is, I mean, it is very clear when I go up against competitors, they're giving people a 1-page sheet of like the contract, and it's like pump included, yes, heater included, yes, and I'm like pump included, IntelliFlow XF 3 horsepower, like heater included, 400,000 BTU. So every detail and everything that's included is in there. I also include what is not included twice. So if sod is not included, it's in there twice. If sprinklers are not included, it's in there twice. And I, again, am very, very and I even got to the point where if I know this client is going to give me heck about sprinklers, reroutes not being included or sod, I will put it in the cost breakdown too of a $0. So that and there's 3 different places in a contract that this is not included, don't ask about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one way, I guess, that we've managed that expectation. And then as far as timeline, stuff like that, again, I think the single biggest issue you see with contractors today is they're paying for the current project with the next project.
Yep.
And if you can get away from being able to do that, there's a freedom in scheduling that it's like you're not depending on.
And by that,
the
you're
next.
talking about the deposits from the next projects, finishing up the payments on this one.
Exactly.
Okay.
And when you get away from that, especially even now, I mean, me running pretty low, sales and stuff on the first year and stuff, I was always doing that. I wasn't ordering pool equipment until I needed it because I didn't have $15,000 to spend at that point. Or like I didn't feel comfortable because I always wanted a certain number in the bank for issues. But now we've gotten to the point where, I mean, when the ice storm hit and I knew there was going to be delays, we just ordered all the pool equipment for our whole year. Right. So, we're going to cut a huge check.
But you're saving some money on it, I'm presuming?
Not really, because we already get the same price.
So you're doing it in order to have it?
Yeah, exactly. I know that we're 6 to 12 weeks out on equipment, so we're not even starting some pools for another 6 to 8 weeks, but I'm ordering the equipment for it, so I don't have those delays.
And that's one of the bigger impacts of COVID, but also the freeze.
Yep.
Is that COVID messed up all of the why am I forgetting the name of this process? But all the shipping, all the freight, supply chain. You're missing all the supply chain, and then it got even
shut
worse.
down. It shut down production houses too.
Right.
They couldn't even make any
And that's a
more.
big difference. I know that we talked about this in COE, and I want to kind of revisit it. American made. Tell me about your issue with American made.
American made generally
Isn't.
means American put together.
Totally.
Yeah, with worldwide parts.
Right.
So the problem is the worldwide parts are not being delivered. So even if they want to make them in America,
Yeah.
a lot of our manufacturing is done in California and Arizona, and they were shut down for months
Right.
because of COVID, and they're still at limited capacities, so they can't even build what they want to, and that's if they can get the parts in.
Right.
So there's certain things that you can't even get in.
Yeah, and there's huge delays at all of the ports.
Yep.
Los Angeles is one of the worst.
Yep.
And I mean, they're looking at over 2 months at this point, right?
That's correct. And
Yeah.
they said with the freezes down in Texas, the last numbers I've heard is over 100,000 sets of pool equipment that were not available already
Are now in demand.
are now in demand.
Yeah. And so, I mean, they're literally just rerouting boats and doing planes and all. I mean, it's just crazy what's going on right now. So that's why you took on the inventory.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not because the guy said, oh, you'll get a 5% discount.
Not at all. Not at all.
It's just because you wouldn't be able to sell pools. Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
And so that brings up pricing, right? And I know that we've talked about this a little bit, but how do you typically price jobs? You know, what is your typical strategy with that, with bidding?
So we've always done fixed costs for the most part. The last year I was at Claffey, we started getting into some stuff that interior designers were involved and architects were involved, and we told the customer we can't even price this because we don't know what the end result's going to be. Like, we know what the design's going to be, but these projects get so big that if you make a tile decision that's a $10 difference in per square foot, like that's like a $30,000 difference when you add it up for the whole project.
Right.
So we started going to some cost plus type of pricing on which were like a true cost plus to the client. We were very open with them on what their expenses were and had every bill and all that. So that's kind of what I've started doing here, which is if we get over a $150,000 job or something that's out of our market, we'll go to a cost plus, because the market there's a lot of work right now and there's a lot of good jobs, and I'm not going to risk profit when there are people that are willing to kind of go to that cost plus, especially on a high-end project. It's not the environment, in my opinion, to not make your true profit that you need to on the job.
Yeah. And I mean, especially with the issues with equipment.
Yes.
And not just equipment, but lumber and every other material. I mean, you don't know what the price is going to be.
Yeah, I can't remember a more certain time for calls coming in and jobs being available, and a less certain time on
Whether or
anything
not you
else.
can do it. Yeah.
Anything else.
Yeah.
Whether labor is going to be available, whether material is going to be available, or whether equipment is.
Yeah.
And to add on, at least in Oklahoma, I mean, this was the snowiest, the coldest winter
On record.
in record.
Yeah.
I mean, so we had, I mean, from November until February, we hardly even worked.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in fact, we had to get one job done so they wouldn't not fall out of their closing. So we actually rented a tent and tented the whole job and had gas heaters in it for the duration of the job. The first time we pulled that tent off was, they just closed on the house literally today, and we pulled that tent off 2 weeks ago. We built the whole project under a tent.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So our guys, when it was on one day, it was 6 degrees outside and it was 65 degrees in our tent.
So that's the cost plus. The cost was a little bit higher on that.
Yeah. Correct.
That's so crazy.
But it wasn't crazy because there's no weddings going on right now. So it cost us $2,000.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So on a $102,000 job is a $2,000 cost for the project to get done.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Maybe you'll move to that more often in the winter, right?
Yeah, but that's also why I don't have in-house. I mean, that's a perfect example. Almost all of my jobs, I can't truly know until, I'm starting to plan them, of what type of labor I'm going to need, the numbers I'm going to need, the skilled trades I'm going to need on them, because they're so different from each other.
Right.
Timelines are different, materials are different. So for me to have in-house guys, truly, it wouldn't make a lot of sense, because all of our jobs look so much different.
Yeah.
And like we're doing a job in Norman right now we're going to start, and we'll do it over the next year, that we're going to bring crews in from Miami, Florida to do all the tile work, because that's what they do. They do full tile interiors.
And I think you have to clarify here that like these aren't, your average pool. These are
Right.
massive pools. Like the one how many concrete trucks did you work with yesterday?
We just shot, it was 100, right at 100 yards. So it was 99 yards, it was 11 trucks, 9 yards a piece. Yeah.
So these are massive pools we're talking about. And the one is even bigger that you just talked about in Norman.
Oh yeah,
It's double.
Yeah, it'll be double the size at least.
So we're talking like, massive. And if you want to look at your website, it's, what is it again? It's Schindler.
SchindlerDesignCo.com.
Okay, SchindlerDesignCo.com. You'll see what, he's talking about with all these different trades and bringing people in from Miami, because they're amazing and they're special. So, man, there's so much great stuff. I know we've kept you long enough. How can people get in contact with you?
Just through my website. If you want to reach out, we have kind of some stuff you can fill out there, or give me a shout, through email, reid@schindlerdesignco.com, and that's REID. Any questions on anything? I mean, because I was brought up through kind of an intern and really just dumb luck, I try to do the same for other people. Like, if there's questions, I teach classes at some of our trade shows and stuff. I sit on some boards to where like my sole intention is kind of mentorship and to answer questions and just be that place where someone could go with even, what they may think is a dumb question, but it's just not. Because I've been that guy for a long time. And, I think it's cool. I network with a lot of really young professionals, and I think it's cool to see the surgence of, people that are 25 to 35 to 45 that are just killing it right now.
Yeah.
And so, but and what's weird about that is it's a little different than the generation I think above us, that there was a lot of competition. And I feel like our generation is a little bit more of collaboration and kind of like, everybody can bounce things off each other. And there's always going to be that competitiveness, but that's kind of what, that's what my mantra is. So if you have questions, if you're a pool builder, if you're in the market, I mean, Oklahoma City market, I really don't care. I mean,
let's chat.
I'm confident that if I go against you, we'll see who wins.
That's great. I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. Yeah. We're all about less stress, more time, more money for contractors. And I think some of the things that you've talked about are definitely helpful in finding less stress. Focusing on, hey, just handling what you can right now, not trying to be bigger than you really are. And, knowing your place in the market, knowing where you want to be is so important. Not having all the employees, having all subs so that you have more time. Leaving your sales job so that you have more time to start your own thing, right? And then also, doing the cost plus pricing, so many other things to have more money is so important. So we appreciate your time, Reid. Hopefully we'll see you again. And
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, right. Thanks a lot, Reid.
Thanks for listening to The Cashflow Contractor. Check out our website in the show notes or visit thecashflowcontractor.com.